All right, today we're going to take a look at the absolutely wild 50-year journey of video games. Seriously, we're going from a single, obscure program running on a computer the size of a room all the way to the global entertainment juggernaut it is today. So, let's dive right in. To really get a sense of just how massive this explosion has been, just look at this. Back in 1976, where our story kicks off, we're talking about one game. One! And it was only accessible to a tiny handful of people. Now, fast forward to today, and it's just a constant flood of new games every single week, on every device you can think of. The change is, well, it's staggering. So where did it all start, really? Let's rewind the clock and go way back to the beginning, back to a time when video game wasn't even a household name, but more of a strange little curiosity tucked away in university computer labs. Yeah, and we're not talking about some slick console under your TV. In the 70s, a mainframe game was played on a massive, literally room-sized computer. You could only find these things in universities or huge corporations, which meant almost nobody got to play them. This was about as far from mainstream entertainment as you could possibly get. And here it is. This is the starting gun for our entire timeline. In 1976, a game called Sinners fires up on a mainframe somewhere in the US. It's the only entry for that whole year, but it's the first tiny step into this huge new world we're about to explore. But of course, gaming didn't stay locked up in the lab for very long. The next giant leap forward brought it out of the computer room and straight into our living rooms. And we have a wave of innovation from Japan to thank for a big part of that. The 90s and early 2000s, man, what a time. This was truly a golden age for consoles. It's when so many of the icons we still know and love today were born. They basically cemented their legendary status on platforms like the NES, the Game Boy, and the PlayStation. And then in 1996, you get Pocket Monsters, yep, Pokémon as we all know it, launching on the Game Boy. It just sparked this global phenomenon that, let's be honest, is still going incredibly strong today. Go back just 2 years before that, and the NES got its first taste of a truly epic, sprawling adventure with Final Fantasy. This game basically wrote the playbook for role-playing games that would keep us all hooked for decades. And the ambition for handheld gaming just kept getting bigger and bigger. I mean, in 2001, Nintendo didn't just put out one Zelda game for the Game Boy Color. No, they released 2 of them that were interconnected. The power of these handhelds was just undeniable at this point. So much so that even PlayStation's own mascot, Crash Bandicoot, made the leap over to Nintendo's Game Boy Advance in 2002. The console era was in full swing, and it seemed like everybody wanted in. Okay, so physical cartridges and discs, they were just one chapter of the story. The next revolution, the next big shakeup, didn't happen in a store or in a living room. It happened online. And the rise of digital distribution completely rewrote the rules for how games are bought, sold, and even made. And the impact was, well, immediate and dramatic. Just look at this chart. The number of game releases didn't just climb, it went vertical. It exploded. All of a sudden, you didn't need a massive publisher and a factory to get your game to players. But that created a whole new problem. How does anyone find your game in a sea of thousands? This whole boom was fueled by this tidal wave of new platforms. Steam really kicked the doors open for PC gaming in the mid-2000s. And then came browser games, and then the iPhone App Store, and indie-focused places like itch.io. Every single new platform sparked its own little gold rush, creating the incredibly diverse market we see today. And of course, when a market gets this crowded and grows this fast, the business side of things gets more intense than ever. Behind all the fun and games is a really volatile, high-stakes industry. It's built on a constant cycle of mergers, acquisitions, and yeah, unfortunately, closures. This timeline here tells a story that's all too familiar in the games industry. You've got a company like Microform being founded back in '87. A decade later, you see consolidation. Graphic Zone buys up Inkscape. Then comes the expansion phase. THQ pushes into Scandinavia in 2006. But that cycle often ends with a closure, like the recent sad news about Sony's London studio in 2024. It is a tough business for sure. All of which brings us to today, the result of 50 years of tech leaps, creative breakthroughs, and brutal business battles is a gaming universe that is more diverse, more accessible, and honestly, more wonderfully weird than ever before. The whole idea of a gaming platform is just completely fragmented now. It's not just PC versus console anymore. Not even close. The market's split between dedicated consoles, high-powered PCs, the phone in your pocket, your web browser, and even totally new things like VR and smart speakers. And with all these new ways and places to play came an absolute explosion of new ideas. The very definition of what a game can even be has been stretched to its absolute limits. We've moved way beyond just saving the princess. Modern gaming gets incredibly specific and wonderfully strange. For example, ever thought you'd try your hand at running a country? Well, you can in 2020's Democratic Socialism Simulator. Or, hey, maybe you want something a little more surreal. How about the bizarre and brilliant David Lynch Teaches Typing from 2018? And if you want to really understand that gaming is everywhere point, get this. Back in 2018, you could play a country song quiz just by talking to your Amazon Alexa. I mean, gaming has seeped into every single corner of our digital lives. So, there you have it. That's the journey. We went from one game on one giant computer to this sprawling universe of interactive art and entertainment and simulators that live on every screen and speaker that we own. It's been a pretty wild ride. Think about it. It took 50 years to get from a single text-based game to interactive quizzes on our smart speakers. It really makes you wonder, what kinds of experiences, things we can't even begin to imagine right now, are going to be totally normal 50 years from now? What do you think is next?